Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to NOLA Theater Talk. My name is Alan Smason, and I'm glad that you're here with me. We have a great show tonight. Those of you who know, we broadcast to the NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group and the theatercriticism.com Facebook page, as well as to my own YouTube channel. Tonight, we are very blessed. We have not only the director, but we also have a number of actors who are going to be participating in what will be the first outdoor Louisiana historical drama, which is named Code Noir. Now, we're going to talk about what an outdoor historical drama is and why this is an important aspect to Louisiana history and how this exists in other states, etc. But in order to facilitate all of that, we have to bring in the director first. And as you can see in the upper right-hand corner right there above me is the name of the sponsoring organization that's producing the show. And that's none other than Voices in the Dark. And the director, of course, we all know has been with us before, Tommye Myrick. Welcome back again to the show, Tommye. Again, Voices in the Dark does it again. But this has been something you have talked to me about. This has been a real passion for you, something you have wanted to do for more than a quarter of a century, correct?
Yes, as a matter of fact, thank you for having us here. Let me just say this, Alan, when I began this show, that came attached to this production and started working on this, I was in my 40s. Now I'm in my 70s. How about that? Okay, well, so that should tell you how long we've been working on this production.
So more than a quarter of a century of wanting to put this on. And again, a historical drama and outdoor historical drama. They do these in most every other state of the union, don't they? To more or less codify their history and talk about the history of their state, right?
Yes, they do. As a matter of fact, when you go in through history, you will find that almost every state in America has one, with the exception of basically three. And Louisiana is one of the three, which doesn't really make sense that we don't. Because I believe that Louisiana is probably the most important state in the Union in making America what it ultimately became. So there you have it.
I'll drink to that. And by the way, in honor of Voices in the Dark, tonight I am drinking a Dark and Stormy, which is rum, ginger beer, and lime juice with a little squeeze of lime and a little bit of a lime in there. So a Dark and Stormy in honor of Voices in the Dark.
Very good. Like and thank you so much. I'm drinking a ginger root tea, which my whole cast is drinking tonight.
All right. Well, again, keep them nice and sober because you don't want them to go off the wagon on an auspicious occasion like this. Now, we have a whole hour to devote to this, a little bit less now, but still, we were talking about Code Noir. Now, Code Noir is also known, I guess, because people, have translated it. It means the Black Code. But this is a code that was brought to the New World via France from the Old World. And it had to do mostly with the treatment of the Black slaves, correct?
Yes.
Although I will mention one thing, too. Code number one, the Code 1 first phrase, if you will, in the Code Noir was all about dealing with the Jews. A little bit of history for me. And so... but mostly dealing with slaves, how they should be treated, how they should be brought up in the Catholic faith, how they should not be worked on religious holidays, things of that sort. Some of it was supposed to be humane in a way, but again, some people took great exception to it because it continued the whole practice of slavery, et cetera. And I would love to hear your thoughts on whether or not you thought it was a good idea, or bad idea, or you just sort of like to walk away from it.
Well, any code that is, and any law that is written to suppress people is a bad idea. I will say this, though. It's amazing that the very first code of Code Noir is the expulsion of the Jews. And I think that was basically because Catholicism was so strong in France, which makes sense in terms of why Louisiana was and is, especially New Orleans and the other parishes, are so Catholic. And so Louis XIV, King Louis XIV, who made this necessary in all of French holding territories was that to get rid of the Jews, not necessarily like Hitler did, but to get them out of these French owned territories. You know, I believe that when it comes down to religious beliefs, it's really a very strong hold on people. And so I think that the reason why that was rule number one is because the Jewish religion and the Jewish people were so strong in their beliefs. And so therefore that was a group of people who you could not control because they were so religiously connected to their roots, as opposed to the African, who is coming from all areas of Africa, mostly the western coast of Africa. But at the same time, because you are enslaving them, you have a group of people who you think that you can control. And so these laws were put in place for several reasons, not just to control the Africans and those enslaved, but to control those who owned them and to put certain things in place. And of course, Louisiana has free people of color. Mm-hmm, unlike other slave-holding states, they had freedmen, and freedmen is a very different type of freedom versus free people of color. Not that they were different from a complexion standpoint, but they were different in that freedmen mostly bought their freedom in Virginia, or they were manumitted by their owners. Free people of color are people who were either born free, or they were the product of a mixed relationship, and they bought their freedom as well, but decided to stay in Louisiana as opposed to moving away from. That meant that they were under the rules and regulations of Code Noir. Mm-hmm. As did most of the Jewish people tried to get out of Louisiana, but those Black people who were free stayed.
I just want to say one thing that historically, even though the Code Noir was in the colony from the time of its inception, 1718, until the time that it changed hands to the Spanish in around 1762, mm-hmm. that it was not enforced. It was not enforced against the Jews. They prospered in the colony of Nouvelle Orleans. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until the Spanish took it over that they began to enforce the Code Noir. Again, another Catholic country and a nation that was very proud to be Catholic, etc. But they disposed of whatever wealth that the rich colonists had that were Jewish and exiled them. But mm-hmm. then a couple of years later, allowed them to come back and once again to prosper in the area here. So again, the treatment that you might have expected that would have been, I would say, pretty onerous, that would have been terrible, that they couldn't own property, things that sort, was not enforced. Even though they were probably looking over their shoulder most of the time, the Jews did prosper here, and they were not really prosecuted in any way or deprived of their ability to exist, persecuted, oppressed in any way until the Spanish arrived. And then mm-hmm. when the Spanish kept the lands until the time that they sold it back, or actually it reverted back to France and Napoleon around just short of the time, obviously, that it was sold to the United States, 1803. So again, we're going to bring in some of the actors who are part of this historical drama. Mm-hmm. But I know for a fact that one of the historical dramas that I went to back when I was a camper at Camp Blue Star, that'll date me a little bit, 1966, 1967, whatever, was something called Unto These Hills. That's right. That was a historical drama about the Cherokee people who lived in that area of North Carolina and who were forced to move along what they call the Trail of Tears, where they were relocated to the Oklahoma area, the Oklahoma mm-hmm. territory, I guess. And again, it was a terrible way in which they were treated. The other side of that, not necessarily making it a good thing, is that some of the people who did go to that area ended up basically having lands that became rich in oil. So in a sense, there was a little bit of benefit, but again, so many people died along the way, and they were treated inhumanely, etc. But these are the sorts of things that we get to tell the story of, and done in an outdoor setting, in, if you will, God's nature, and you get to see, these actors portraying these historical figures and acting it out. And so people who go to see it, who may not be from that state, get to take home a bit of that history. And that's what I think you're trying to do here. You're trying to tell the story of what happened, but also eventually for people who are either living here or maybe who are visiting here to learn a little bit about what this was about, and to learn about the peoples, which is why you're having this cast. And this is a huge cast, correct?
This is a very huge cast, a cast of 25 actors, 16 dancers, 11 musicians and singers as well. In total, we have roughly almost 50 people. But I do want to say something that is important as to why, not just why this story is so important, but why I have been so driven by this story, because I think that there is a misconception on the people of Louisiana and how tightly woven we are into this quilt. There's even a line in the play about this quilt that is just woven so tightly that the line to divide is so thin. You talk about 6 degrees of separation. Here in Louisiana, you're probably only talking about 2. And so this story is very, very, very important. The opportunity that I had in 1994 to direct a historical outdoor drama in North Carolina, Pathway to Freedom, written by Mark R. Sumner, is the thing that got me so driven on this. I began to see how important these stories are, and not just to the economy of the area, but how important they are to the people of the area and the jobs that they provide, but the history. And so people came in from all over America to see Trails of Tears, or to see Unto These Hills, or Lincoln in Illinois. These things happen all over. And this is what I've been trying to bring here to Louisiana. It's taken this long to try to get the finances to make this happen.
And not only did you get the finances, but I know back in 2018 with the Historic New Orleans collection, you actually presented a little snippet of this. It wasn't fleshed out completely, but that the Historic New Orleans collection was able to actually help you present this. And this is going to take place in the historic Congo Square, which is so important to what, a matter of fact, it's ironic to a certain extent, because the Code Noir stipulated that the slaves must be free on Sunday afternoons, etc., that they must have that freedom to be able to do what they needed to do, to have some time to themselves, to have a day of rest. Mm-hmm. And that was the day that they gathered at Congo Square, was it not?
Exactly. Yeah. And know that Congo Square was actually the land of the Native Americans first. And I do want to pay homage to that. But then they embraced, and we embraced them. They embraced us, because you're dealing with 2 sets of people, one set of people whose land was taken from them, and another set of people who were taken from their land. And so the coming together of these 2 groups of people happened in Congo Square.
Let's bring in some of the actors now.
Yes.
First off, we want to add to our mix tonight. That's Gina, and you play, again, please say the name so I don't mispronounce it.
My name is Jenna, and I play Asetua.
Asetua. Okay, mm-hmm. I'm looking at Asetua. Now, can you give me just a little bit of background? Who is Asetua? What is her position in I guess New Orleans that you're talking about? So tell me where she comes from and what her background is.
I think that Asetua is almost difficult to pin in terms of where she comes from. I think that she is, in a sense, almost omnipresent. She is present throughout all time. She's present throughout various transitions during this period that we're talking about. And she's really representative of the African indigenous spirit that stays with the other characters throughout the play.
So she is not necessarily a historic figure. She represents some aspect of the experience rather than. Okay, I understand
And
that.
she serves as the griot or the guide.
Gotcha.
For this particular story.
And I understand that. Now, and Tommye, you said you mentioned Mark R. Summers, right?
Yes.
The playwright. Tell me a little bit about. You mentioned that you'd worked with him a little bit in North Carolina, but is that where you all met? And how did you all start to work on this project?
Actually, Mark wrote a play called A Pathway to Freedom. And it was the very first historical outdoor drama written here in the country that actually had to deal with slavery. So they did a national search, and I put my name into the kitty, and there it was. One day I was directing at the University of New Orleans. One flew over the cuckoo's nest. And when the play was over, this man came up to me. He says, "I want you to know I'm Mark R. Sumner, and I came to see your work, and I would like you to direct my play."
High praise. Very nice. Very, very
I
nice.
know. And from that point on, Mark, who's quite a bit older than I am, he died in 2017 at the age of 93.
Wow.
But he mentored me. And in the 2.5 months that I was up there in snow camp in North Carolina, directing A Pathway to Freedom, we bonded. When I came back to New Orleans, I said, now, is there not a historical outdoor drama in Louisiana? And then that's when I picked up the phone and I called Mark and I said, "Mark, you got to help me write this thing." And there you go.
There you go. Well, all right. So we know exactly the time frame has been, as I said, more than 25 years. When did he finalize the script? When did you actually have something to actually start to work on?
We actually finalized the script in 2004.
Okay. So and this is almost 2024. So it took a few years. Yeah.
But so much has happened over those years, and the sensitivities and the sensibilities and the attention span of people have changed, that we've had to modify various ways to keep it moving with the attention span of people. Sure. And so so it's been edited, and Jenna has helped me do that. And we've tried to condense it because it was a very lengthy production. And so we've condensed it down to, I believe the running time of the first act may be an hour. And we ran Act 2 and it was a little bit less than an hour. But, stuff happens in theater. It may end up being 3 hours after all.
So let's bring in two more actors now. This is Cody and Queen Shireen, and they actually will be portraying Santee and Reynard. Now Santee is, I guess I have it backwards. I have to change it up for you, but that's okay. Santee, that would be Queen Shireen. Is that right? Now,
yes.
Tell me a little bit about Santee. What is her character in terms of can you give me a little bit of background? She's not a griot or a person describing an experience. She's an actual personage that you're dealing with, correct?
Well, yes. In this show it's fictional, but we see Santee when she is brought from Saint-Domingue to Cuba to New Orleans at the age of 17. And throughout the play, we see her journey until she's around 52. And we see her Santee where she learns what freedom means, understanding that she doesn't have it, and learns how she's going to get it and what it means for her life and for her children's lives.
Cody, tell me a little bit about who Reynard is.
Yeah, absolutely. Reynard is a wealthy Frenchman living in New Orleans, and his story in the play largely is about family, I feel, and him navigating that and sort of grappling with the realities of the time while trying to run a sustainable business and keep these children under control.
What kind of business is he running? I'm assuming it has something to do perhaps with the slave trade or not.
Not directly. He would be largely dealing in some shipping deals, and he is the owner of a plantation in Louisiana and has property in Cuba. So mostly it's a transfer of goods.
I got you. So you all have been working on this project how long? When did you first get involved?
August 19th.
Who's that to? For me or for them?
No, for them as actors. I know you've been around long.
Alan, did you freeze?
I hope not. I hope not.
Oh, did I? Jenna, you're blinking your eyes.
I think I'm not frozen.
Everybody's okay from what I can tell for right now.
Okay.
So, but we're in on the internet a little slow for you, but as far as I can tell, everybody's fine. But again, Cody and Queen Shireen, when did you actually get started? And the same thing, Jenna, when did you get started in terms of getting involved with this project?
Jenna, do you want to go first? Because you...
No,
She's thinking about it.
Well, for Cody and I, August 19th was our first full table read of the play.
I
got you. And did you figure it out yet, Jenna? No, or
no? Miss T is gonna have to help me with this one. You know what? I am actually really honored to be able to say that I'm the originator for the role of Asatua. Okay. So way back, I don't know, this was pre-pandemic, and everybody kind of lost a chunk of time during the pandemic. So at least 5 years ago, we embarked on this journey where we were sharing snippets.
Were you involved in the Historic New Orleans collections?
Yes. Yes,
okay, so that's 2018. So that's at least 5 years now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So still here.
And I do remember that the production was also promoted over Stepping Out, which is a program I'm also associated with. And we did put a little bit of it on. I have to say though that's fantastic. You originated the role, and therefore Tommye's going to be having to give you all the royalties now for that.
Yeah, yes. In writing, please.
I do want to comment about the cast. Jenna and quite a few of the cast members are cast members who have been here from the start. And even though we have all aged over the years of trying to get this thing started, they still wanted their parts back. I got calls saying, hey, look, I want my part back. I'm like, hey, but you too old, you too gray. And so we've been dyeing hair and and working on things like that. But a lot of the cast members, I think there are about 6, huh, Jenna, who are in the original cast who are back.
And or at least are part of the production team in some way, shape, or form. Yeah, if they're not in the cast anymore, they're a member of the production team.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been trying to do a little banner here while I'm here. At 5 o'clock, October 13th is when the initial show will be seen, and then you have another 2 days. Again, 5 o'clock at Congo Square on the 14th and the 15th. And again, you're encouraging people to bring chairs. I'm assuming that you do know that because it's a public park and that everybody should know that this is a presentation that is costing money for the production company of Voices in the Dark, but that they're not able to charge anything, but they are actually accepting donations if anybody feels from the goodness of their heart that they want to give something to help the production along and to perhaps have another staging of this, that they would love to receive any donations from you. And again, one of the reasons we're talking about this now tonight is to have people know that is the way it's being done, that because it's a public park,
we cannot charge, which however we didn't know initially. So that was a shocker. But I will say that my board, and I'm very proud of them for making the decision. If we had just moved our production 55 feet beyond Congo Square into Louis Armstrong Park, we could charge. But my board decided, and I'm glad they did, because that's what I wanted them to do, that we would just eat this. Not that we had the money to eat this, but that the project is so worthy of audience, so worthy of participation. And so we can't charge. It is a public park, and so people get in free. They bring their own chairs, your own snacks or what have you, no alcohol, even though Al has something dark over there in his thing that seems with ginger.
Right.
But we we have to begin at 5. And the reason for that is because the park closes at a certain time, and under no circumstances would they stay open beyond an hour. And so I said, okay, well, we have to begin at 5. We have to make sure that we're done by 7:30, because they've given us an extension of an hour, and so that we have to close by 8. So it's a lot of obstacles, a lot of hurdles to jump, but we just say how high.
Well, again, if you're going to put it on anywhere in New Orleans, to put it on anywhere else other than Congo Square and its historic significance would probably make the production seem a little bit less important in terms of the significance of it. I even though if you were in Louis Armstrong Park, like you said, only a few feet away, it still would probably, a lot of people would probably say, it's too bad that you didn't get a chance to do it in Congo Square. So I appreciate your board's support, and I appreciate the fact that you recognize how important it is to do this. But again, for the benefit of those people who don't know, about Congo Square and its importance, the Code Noir and Congo Square, as I said, sort of have a history together. That when the code was set up, it established the ability for the slaves to be able to gather in wherever they wanted to on Sunday, that they were not being forced to work on the Sabbath day that was observed in the colonies, and they were able to actually meet with some of the people who were from their own groups, their own. I'm not quite sure if we want to go to the level of tribes, but I would say from their own countries, et cetera. And they were able to find out who's here and where they are, and the benefit of finding out, who's doing well, who's not doing well, and also to share in what became a tradition of song and dance, things of that sort, which inspired other people and led to, later on the historic music tradition that we have in this country of first the classical music of Gottschalk, et cetera, and then later on the creation of jazz and blues and things of that sort that we've come to know and love.
I want to say something, Alan, about the something that what Oprah would call a teachable moment. So the other night I'm at rehearsal, and I'm and a couple of actors are struggling and stuff like this, and I hear Mark in my head because what I hear from him. It's when I did Pathway to Freedom, I younger, and I said, Mark, these people can't act. This problem and this problem and that problem. And he said to me, but Tommye, they're here. And that's the thing. They are here. And it's not about the acting. It's not about the singing and the dancing. It's about the story. And for whatever reason they may be in a part of this team, they are here. So I heard Mark echoing that in my head. But we've had a lot of support from Glenda. I know you know Glenda McKinley, and we're here at the McKinley Studios, which is wonderful, right off of the fairgrounds. And this has been our home for the past 6 weeks as we try to bring this all together. We have, Bill Summers, and everybody knows that name, a legendary jazz percussionist who actually called me in July and said, girl, what's this I hear you doing in Congo Square? And I said, yeah. He said, well, you can't do that without me. So he is the musical director. And we have a lot of actors and singers and dancers, Kai Knight and the dance ensemble, and also Ray Ramsey, who is our choral director. But the cast is incredible in terms of their in terms of their devotion, and in terms of their commitment. They're a young cast. They're a young cast, but they give it their all. And my aunt used to say to me all the time, "Did you do your best?" And I would say through my tears, "Yes, I did." And she would say, "Then your best is good enough."
Yeah.
And that's what I want to say about that.
Tommye, I'm going to say something that I know that other people know. You are a little bit of a perfectionist. You expect a lot of your actors, and they know it, and they give every last ounce of whatever they have, perspiration and everything that they can to make you happy, because I know that you don't want anything less than what the very best that they can give you. But sometimes I know in the process of putting a production on, you get a little bit let's say dissatisfied here and there, and because that they're capable of more, and that's all. Not to be saying that you're a director who's too demanding, but you expect to have the best, and when they come to the table, you expect them to deliver. And I think that it's good experience for them to have somebody who has that kind of high expectations too. So I guess Jenna, tell me a little bit about what your character does. You said that she's there, ever present, etc. But tell me a little bit about some of what she experiences and how she relates to everybody. In other words, does she talk directly to the audience, or does she talk in a way as in a roundabout way that she doesn't actually talk to the audience, but she says things almost like a Greek chorus? How is it done?
Asetoa breaks the fourth wall, for sure.
Okay.
And the audience, actually, they're the only ones who can see and hear Asetoa. The rest of the ensemble cannot. And so she essentially is again, when you think of a griot, the griot is more than just a storyteller. A griot is the keeper of the history of the tribe or the nation. And so they typically will also sing this history along with song. And so I don't speak with any of the other characters. All of my cues, the majority of my cues are song sound cues. I don't always speak with the music as an accompaniment, but oftentimes it is done in the traditional style of a griot with music underscoring what I'm saying. So that's essentially her position. She speaks to the audience. She teaches the audience. She's the one who really gives the history. She gives all of the dates. She gives the times, the places, the locations, and she really just keeps everybody on track.
And she moves us through this saga.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
She's also the emotional linchpin.
Mm-hmm.
Because we feel her spirit, and she moves us, she soothes us, but she tells us the truth. I do want to say something too about the story. This story is about not just the makings of Louisiana, and it was purposely chosen to start this story in 1794. That was done on purpose because that's when the Haitian Revolution began. And it's my belief that America wouldn't be what it is today if it had not been for the Haitian Revolution. And so we begin the story in 1794. And we meet Renard and we meet Santee, and we move them, and they age through these years. But through these years comes the fabric coming together, not just the mixing of a culture, but the mixing of a bloodline, which is what happens here in Louisiana, and the gumbo, which is the reason why you can't delve too deep on either side.
Right.
And I think that Renard Cody, who plays Renard, and Queen Shireen, who plays Asetoa, the two of them together, it's like fireworks.
Santee. She plays Santee.
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 Yes. Yeah. So let me ask you a question. Is that Cody there?
Uh-huh.
Cody.
Yeah.
Now, who are the other three members of the cast that are there?
Oh, that's Lucy. That's my daughter. That's Santee in the middle. And that's Tilly. She is an enslaved person in our home.
So now, are you playing? Again, I'm trying to get an idea. Is this a family? Cody is living with Queen Shireen, or I'm trying to understand that.
So Reynard owns property, and
Reynard, yeah, okay.
Usually, as a rule, slaves as well, and so this is his, I suppose, cohort.
Okay, and again, you have. Are we dealing with? And again, tell me, you might want to come in. Are any of these people that we're dealing with? Are any of these free people of color at all, or
Are they what?
are they free people of color at all?
No.
None of them are. They're all
No.
slaves.
Oh, in this picture, yes.
Okay.
In this
So,
picture,
I would love to jump in if I could, if that
Yes.
is that okay?
go ahead.
Yeah, please,
So,
please.
Ms. T, you mentioned a little while ago this wonderful phrase called a teachable moment, and Mr. Smason, correct?
Yeah. Sure.
Yes. So one of the things that I have adhered to pretty tightly, and we don't use the verbiage in the play because it's not how it's written. However, in my research over the years and the sharing of these types of stories, one of the things that I really love about learning is how to take control of a narrative. And I think that's one thing that Ms. T allows us to do, right?
Okay.
So here we have an opportunity where we get to tell a story that we are very much a part of, a story that we're typically excluded from, or where the narrative is changed, right? And so I would like to say this to you and to everyone who's watching, that moving forward, when we reference those who are enslaved, that is how we reference them. Instead of saying slaves,
Okay.
we use the word enslaved.
Enslaved.
So these enslaved people that we're speaking of, because to me, when you say the word slave in reference to a person, it almost denotes that God just created this being to be a slave on the face of this earth. But that's not the case. These were people who God created in his image to be free, who were brilliant people, who an action was taken against, and they were enslaved. And so for me, when the word enslaved is used, that allows for accountability to take place.
Okay.
Right. And so I'm just listening as the conversation is going on, and I really felt very moved to share that.
So this would be the same for the enslaved Hebrews who were enslaved by the Egyptians.
Absolutely.
Okay. So you would suggest that would be the better way to refer to us as enslaved.
That is my
people?
suggestion.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
My strong suggestion. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, again, I'm used to the Haggadah, which is at the Seder time, and we always say slaves were we to Pharaoh in Egypt. We don't say enslaved people, but again, if that in this particular case is something that you think makes more sense, that's fine.
And that's the beauty in the power of words and the power of language and how it's used, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
you're talking to an editor who uses words all the time. So
right.
Yes, I know what words are all about.
Yeah. About the power and the influence that words can have over individual mindsets as well as collective mindsets, right? Okay. And so when we're telling the narrative of this particular story, we're speaking out against a collective mindset when it comes to the institution of slavery or enslavement. And so what you said a second ago, something that you said it so simply, I'm used to. And so this play is important to me because it's going to shake some things up. It should stir some things up. It should make some people very uncomfortable. And the things that we have been used to, it's time to get rid of them and get used to some new things, including how we tell the story and the words that we use.
Okay.
Which brings about something else. So my publicist called me the other day, and she says, Tommye, you know, I got a call. Oh, but even though she called me, I got the email too. And I'm not going to name the person, but it says, my name is so and so and so and so, and I'm Jewish. And the Jews were affected by Code Noir. Do you speak of us in this play? And so my publicist is saying, well, Tommye, you know what, you know, I haven't read the play. What do I said? Well, there is one line in there. But that's it. But this is our story being told by us. And I think it's very important, as Jenna said, in terms of the narrative, that if you want your story to be told, then you need to write it. Though what I said to the gentleman is when I answered him back, and I said, the play is called Code Noir because of the period of time and the rule of law that we lived in. Of course, we can't deal with every ethnic group that was suppressed at that time by this code, which include, by the way, not just ethnicity, but women as well. Mm-hmm. But this is the story that we want to tell. And it's an important story for us to tell. Santee is the name of my great-great-great-grandmother, who was enslaved here in Louisiana on Bayou Blue. Not in this period of time. She was in the early 1800s, but still, that's where the name came from. Willie, who is a character in here, was the name of my great-grandfather. Lucy was the name of my great-grandmother. Catherine was the name of one of my favorite aunts. But you see, so there's a lot in here, but I do want to say something else about historical dramas, and this is important. If you have within that play a person who actually lived during that period of time, and you mention or use anything about that person, the events surrounding that particular person has got to have happened as it was told and as it happened. You can't fudge on that, on the history, though we do know a lot of people are trying to change that. History, that is. But Mark told me two things don't change in life: death and history. And so we do have Jean Lafitte in here. We do talk about W.C.C. Claiborne. We do have Andrew Jackson in here. And we do deal with Plaçage and that whole quadroon thing. We do have Marie Laveau in here. Mm-hmm. And so all of these things take us from 1794 to 1827.
Okay, and then of course that's a historically important date. You want to tell people who don't know why?
No, I wanted to come and see the play.
You want to come see the play? Okay. All right. I know why, but that's okay. I will keep it deep in violet in my breast. Let me get back to Cody and Queen Shireen since can you tell me a little bit about perhaps how as their characters might relate to some of the goings on? I mean, do they live throughout the entire course of the play, or do their characters don't survive up to a certain point? I mean, are they with us the whole time? Is that can't go there? Okay, so that's part of the.
Right. So ask another question.
Right. You know, I don't want to spoil it for anybody. All right, so we'll leave it at that. Can I get some more from Cody and from Queen Shireen about your feelings about playing these historical characters? And I'll start with Cody first. ladies, you've already gone first, Queen Serene. So let me let Cody go first, and tell me a little bit about. Do you feel that it's an accurate portrayal from what you understand, and that you are able to own up to what was going on with people like that you're representing?
Yeah. Well, I suppose I have to say I feel like as an actor, it's not so common to find a script and material that you really love. That feels like a lot of times you're placing yourself into a box you don't quite fit in. But the Code Noir is beautiful and wonderful, and it's very well written, and it's very easy to relate to all of the characters. And you asked how it is relating to people from that time, and I think for the most part, times change and people don't. I think we're not so different.
Mm-hmm.
And do you think that's true for your character as well? For your character, what about Santee's character?
Well, for myself, I am deeply connected to this story. Of course, I have a shared history. My roots are from the Caribbean. Santee, I see her, she's coming from West Africa and probably grew up Muslim, and I relate to that as well. Myself, being in New Orleans and the connections that I have here as a spiritual home, it's profound for me to be performing this in Congo Square. And the fact that Santee is Tommye's, Miss T's great grandmother's name is not lost on me. I know the deep importance of telling this story. So I'm putting everything I have into Santee.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Tell me, you said the drama actually ends 1827. Do you feel that it tells the story what you wanted to tell when you started up to write this with Mark? Did you kind of feel like that was a proper spot to stop, or?
I thought that was a proper spot to stop, because that's when things begin to change. Even here in America, as related to slavery, things begin to change. Attitudes begin to change. And I didn't want us to go through a Jane Pittman moment. I just wanted to tell the story of this young girl. And I think that 30 years, 27 years
Mm-hmm.
was long enough to see people come and go.
Now, some of the actors who are not with us tonight, I have a couple of pictures. Maybe you can tell me a little bit about their characters. We've got here three men here. So can you tell me from left to right? Is that Dane in there? I'm trying to see who that is.
Yeah, that's Dane.
Okay.
And you guys can take over and tell them who these characters are.
So Dane Rhodes all the way on the right. Of course, a very well-known actor and film actor. Been in a number of films, etc. But locally, a highly regarded actor and director, and has occasionally produced too. So tell me who is that on the left that we're dealing with, and then who the characters are, what they portray.
Who's talking?
Okay, so from I guess left to right, that would be Jacques Lessard, Franklin Armstrong, and Sebastian Mahan. Okay,
and do you know kind of what they represent, their characters? Are they? It looks to me like they're cowboys in a sense. So I'm not quite sure. Wearing the hats, does that make them Americans and not necessarily from Creole, French or Spanish colonists or not?
Lazar is an enslaved African who is the second to us. Who's that? To Jonathan. Well, that's
Armstrong.
To Armstrong. Armstrong is in the center, and so they are a team. Even though the black gentleman played by Gerard Jones plays Lazar, he's sort of like his driver, his boy.
Okay. Well, he works with him. In other words, is what you're saying.
Well, works for him.
For him. Okay.
Works for him, even though he is enslaved. So he's not getting money to do what he does.
I got
But you will see also how the people begin to change. You know, Muhammad Ali said, a man who is the same as he is at 30 is the same that he is at 50 as a man who's wasted 20 years of his life. And so, the thing is that we see these characters change, not just grow old, but we also see them change.
I had another picture, and again, I wanted to try. I know that's Reynard and then the character that Dane's playing. Are they in business together? Is that what the idea is, along with Senti?
Sebastian. Sorry, Santi. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Again, that was Reynard and Sebastian. Well, this is probably a scene where Reynard is purchasing Santi. So Santi is Reynard's property.
Gotcha. And again, I mean that's the real terrible tragedy. I mean, not that there isn't a lot of it, but I'm sure that's brought out quite a bit in terms of families being broken up and people being sold, et cetera, as property, which, you know, we obviously know is at the root of the evil of slavery.
Which, by the way, is a good thing to understand about Code Noir, because one of the codes that's in Code Noir is that families could not be broken up, that a man and a wife and children should not and could not be broken up. And even though the Slave Importation Act was already in play, and that was a part of the Code Noir, Louisiana didn't necessarily always adhere to those rules and regulations.
Understood. Yeah. And the last picture I had is of I think. Can you tell me a little bit about the other character there? Yeah.
That's Santi and Marie Laveau.
Oh, that's Marie Laveau. Okay. So how do they have a some sort of common connection that they have, or they just meet on the street, or what's that
Can
connection?
I say this, T?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Well, Santi goes to visit Marie Laveau for healing.
Assistance.
Okay. All right. I got you. now, are you basing that? Now, you know, I know that historians say that there was more than one person who the daughter took over for the mother at one point. Are you basing this on the older Marie Laveau or the young, or does it matter? I mean, does it matter? It's just Marie Laveau, and we'll leave it at that, or do you know?
But the period of time that we're dealing with the first Marie Laveau.
Okay, gotcha.
Because of the time period that we're in, you know, and a lot of people didn't know that Henrietta DeLille is also in this period of time. Though I tried my best to convince Mark to let's put her in this. Mark said, we got enough. But we have
to write a new play about Henriette because she's one of my favorites.
Well, you know that's just a jumping off point for you to have another production on Henriette DeLille. You know,
Henrietta DeLille and Marie Laveau were first cousins.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
That is very interesting.
So now on the mother's side or the father's side?
On the mother's side.
Okay.
Mhm.
Very interesting.
Mhm.
You learn so much. And again, I'm always open to learning more things. I mean, I'm not implacable. I mean, I do keep an open mind about a lot of things. But the things that you learn a lot of times you find out later on have nothing to do with fact. I mean, as kids, we learned all about Betsy Ross and making the flag, et cetera. And now we know that that story is and probably was made up about 75 years after she died.
That's true.
But everybody still thinks about Betsy Ross and
Betsy
sewing the
Ross
flag,
and
et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So we learn things and then we have to unlearn them as adults. So, that's why I always say it's a wonderful thing to be able to learn, but it's also a wonderful thing to be able to relearn and be able to pass that on. So a lot of what you're going to have in this historical drama, may be enlightening to a lot of people who do not know. And I don't blame people for necessarily being ignorant. I blame people for not wanting to learn. And this is something that I think that everybody, no matter who they are, whether their ancestry dates back to this time, or whether or not that they've come here as my family did much later after this whole issue was quote unquote decided, but not necessarily. But what I'm saying is that we took refuge, if you will, in New Orleans for the opportunities, and yet we understand the history and what was there, and we know what went on before we arrive, and we hopefully have made things better or been contributing to society in such a way as to make things better since that time. So
Well, we're
yeah.
hoping that this story tells not just the story of this family and these people, but that it tells Louisiana history, and that we go from the Haitian Revolution all the way to France, Spain, and France, Spain, back to France, and the Louisiana Purchase 1803, and then dealing with the revolt of 1811, and dealing with the war of 1812, and of course the battle of
1795. Yeah.
and so you have to go through these stages and see how it affected one family.
Yeah. Well, I do appreciate, the opportunity tonight. Now, again, we're going to try to promote this as much as we can. We want everybody, this is going to be archived. And again, we have, as I mentioned, for people who do, check out the show from time to time, that it will be on the NOLA Folk Facebook group, NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group, and also on theatercriticism.com's Facebook page. And it'll be archived there, but it'll also be on YouTube. And people who want to check it out, we'll send them the link, if hopefully be able to spur some more interest and hopefully get people to come in and see the performance live. Again, you recommend they bring chairs, folding chairs. Are you also going to want people to bring blankets, or is there a spot?
If they want to sit down on the ground with the blankets, because that's what they did before in the very brief scene that we did. People were calling people on the phone, bring your blanket, bring a chair, bring something. And I do recommend that too. Remember, the show starts at 5, and so it should be over with by about 7:30, just as we're moving into night.
Yes, yes.
So
you're not going to necessarily need lights, thankfully, at this time of the year.
No, but we will have them. I wish that we could have had the show start at 7.
Yeah, well, I understand. Year. Yeah, you know what? That's right. Next year, hopefully next year, bigger and better. But you've got a full complement of actors. You've got a full complement of dancers and musicians, and this is going to be a major production for people to see. And I'm so happy that you were able to come tonight to see it. I'm sorry to take up an hour of your rehearsal time.
And I'm
sorry to do that. But you know what? If I didn't do it, who else would, right?
To be fair, you said earlier how Ms. T has high expectations of the cast and the actors. I think that we all have high expectations of one another, and though rehearsal has been a lot of hard work, it's been a beautiful, especially given the content that we're dealing with, it's been a positive, beautiful experience.
It's a very symbiotic relationship between a director and her cast, or his cast, in this particular case, her cast. And again, Ms. T, you always do a great job. Congratulations on getting this together. I know by the time that the production starts on October the 13th at 5 p.m., that it will be a work that you will be very pleased with, and that the actors will also be pleased that they were put through their paces and that you did it. So you hang in there. I want to thank you very much. I'm going to let you all go out right now. I'm going to just remove you. I'll be back to talk to you later. Let me say goodnight to everybody. Again, this has been Alan Smason with NOLA Theater Talk. And again, we broadcast on the NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group, the theatercriticism.com Facebook page, and my own YouTube channel. I want to thank you for being here tonight. I want to thank all the actors who were here. And again, Tommye Myrick, the director of Le Code Noir. Do not miss this. This will be a production that you'll want to see and tell your kids and grandkids about. Perhaps even bring somebody back next year and say, I saw this the first time, and it was an amazing production. So for that, I'm going to say good night. God bless you all, and I'll see you at the theater.